Hello, so in this section of the text, we learn about ethical positions. The three ethical positions are ethical absolutism, ethical relativism, and ethical universalism. Ethical absolutism is when an action is held on a worldwide standard. Ethical absolutists believe that the same standard should be applied everywhere for good and bad behavior. The good thing about ethical absolutism is that it sets the standard across the board. The bad thing is that the dominant culture aspects would probably become the norm, which would mean the non dominant culture would end up being muted. The ethical relativism position is when you emphasize the context behind an action. You have to look at it from a cultural insider's viewpoint. Ethical relativists try to understand a cultural group based off of their ethical judgments. It is positive because they emphasize the importance of culture in decision making, and it's negative because it can ignore ethical principles behind the cultural ones. The third position is ethical universalism. This emphasizes making universal judgments based off of proper cultural context. You must analyze the similarities across cultures. It must include equal power and representation amongst groups, which is easier said than done. This is the ideal goal to follow for ethical positions. There's also the meta-ethics contextualism position. This means that the approach toward ethics has multiple layers of ethical dilemma. A meta-ethics perspective requires that each case be studied uniquely and that they must take precise steps and procedures in order to come to a decision. And then on the 12.1, Discovering Your Own Ethical Positions, I scored a 17 for ethical relativism and a 10 for ethical absolutism. This means that I'm most likely an ethical relativist. I believe that my family is mostly ethical absolutism because my sister and I are generally held under the same guidelines where we have to get good grades and behave no matter what. However, they also fall a little bit with ethical relativism position because I may not be as held as high of a standard as my sister when it comes to something like grades because I'm in college, which means I'm taking harder classes than she is because she's in high school. And then the pro of having a relativist position is that every situation is different and it can have a different outcome. But the con is that it may ignore a serious ethical issue just because it may be okay in that culture. And then the pro of having an ethical absolutist position is that there is a clear position on what to take no matter what. However, the major con is that something in one culture may be okay, but not okay in another, and it may be unfair to pick sides. All right, thanks.